I'm Graeme Richardson-Locke, FESPA's Technical Support Manager, and as it's 11 o'clock, I'd like to welcome you to our second FESPA Coffee Break. In the first session, I explained my role at FESPA, but today I'm going to spare you that and just let you know that I've spent the last 35 years fully immersed in screen and large format digital printing. I began as an apprentice and progressed through several directorships before joining FESPA in my current role. I'm also a member of the Academy of Screen and Digital Printing Technologies. FESPA has, of course, been supporting knowledge sharing and community building in the screen and wide format digital print sectors since 1962. It's an impressive record and one that we continue to build on in this ever-changing world. We aim to keep this session today to between 30 to 40 minutes, and we understand that your time is limited. We hope that you'll benefit from your investment and find some useful tips to focus on that will support your progress in a challenging marketplace. The climate emergency represents the largest, but sadly not the only challenge we face on behalf of future generations. It's clear that we all need to play our part in an effort to decarbonise our economies and hit net zero by 2050. Currently, much of this activity is by voluntary agreement based around compelling international scientific evidence. And in the near future, we're very likely to face more stringent legislative obligations to ensure carbon reduction and environmental protection. The industries that utilise specialty printing techniques may not be the worst offenders, but the need to move from take, make, waste approach to a reduce, reuse, recycle approach has to be our goal. I'm now going to share today's topic with you. Okay, so in today's coffee break, we're going to be looking at the topic of looking ahead and building a more sustainable business, and how a sustainability audit of your business will reveal opportunities to save energy, balance your carbon, and attract new customers.
Graeme, sorry, just to interrupt, you need to allow Claire and Chris's video. For some reason, their video, I think you still allow them to have their video.
Oh, apologies, everyone. Well, there's an unforeseen challenge. Claire and Chris, can you?
Maybe their video and audio.
Okay, I'm struggling to see where to do that.
Can you hear me okay, Graeme?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Chris. I'm just trying to find out where I share your...
Yeah.
Put your video on.
Can you guys, are you able to share your video now, Claire and Chris, or is it still saying you can't?
No, it's still saying you're blocked. The host has to open it.
Same for me.
If it's a struggle, Graeme, let's do it faceless.
Well, I think we can sort this out. I just may need a little help, Kelly, from you.
I'm not sure if I'm able to. Do you want to try and make me host and then see if I can figure out how to do it? Because I'm sure you've been able to do it before, but.
Right, got it.
Yeah, have you?
Hang on, there's.
Graeme, do you want to just try and make me host and then I can try and do it?
Yeah.
And then I'll make you host again.
Okay, I've just made you host.
Yeah, okay, let me see if I can. Yes, unfortunately, I'm not sure if I can see where I can do it. So I think we might just need to start, Graeme.
Okay, I'm on participants. And when I hover over their video cameras, it's not allowing me to change the status.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not. Unless we can. Do you want? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if we were to end it and then come back in, or so perhaps we should just start.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just make you host. Make you host again, Graeme.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm really sorry for the fact that you won't be able to see Claire and Chris. So I'm very pleased to welcome Claire Taylor from Clare Taylor Consulting and Chris Green, Visual Communications Director from Antalis, to offer their insight on today's topic. So firstly, Claire, perhaps you can introduce yourself and follow on by Chris.
Yes, certainly, Graeme. I'm Clare Taylor and I'm a chartered environmentalist and I'm an independent consultant working mainly in the world of graphic arts. And before that, I worked in the world of design studios and ad agencies, ending up as head of marketing services at Cable and Wireless Communications. There, my role involved reading up the print and paper supply chain and carrying out environmental audits across Europe. And from this came my aim to help print businesses improve their sustainability, particularly environmental sustainability, in ways that are cost effective and support their business aims.
Okay, that's great. Chris, can you tell us something about yourself, please?
Yes, certainly, Graeme, thank you. So I'm Chris Green. I'm the Director for Visual Communications within Antalis. My background is predominantly within Antalis. I've been working for the company for 25 years in the visual communications sector. I've got a very broad church role at the moment, but historically, throughout all of my role, I've been connected to our product range, and I've got a real eye on the sustainability side of our range. So looking at really the product life cycles, and also looking at looking at product life cycles, but also looking, to the future, looking at future legislation, and try to make an easy path for our customers to make that move from what are traditionally poor products for sustainability over to more sustainable choices.
Brilliant. And I'm so pleased that I can now see you both. We can all see
smiley faces.
We can get on with the job following those familiar technical glitches that seem to happen at the start of Zoom sessions across the universe at the moment. Okay, I'm just going to launch a poll so that we can see who is in attendance and what kind of sectors you're from. So please complete that. We'll leave it running up for a minute or so just to see where we are. Okay, I think we're nearly there. We're at about 65% of the audience having voted. And so we have the largest cohort identifying as digital printing businesses at 75% of the audience. We've got some smaller number of industrial garment, textile, and signage companies. So that's great. Thank you very much for letting us know who you are today. And I think without further delay, we will get started with our first question. So what business advantage can we gain by focusing our attention on sustainability? Claire, I think you'd like to kick this one off.
I think for this, a lot depends on what we mean by sustainability. Often people think it's just environment, but maybe with a social element, but actually it involves three pillars: people, planet, and prosperity. So to my mind, a sustainable business is one that's functioning well today and which looks ahead. It's prepared, it can sustain itself into the future, and it protects future resources. The advantages, therefore, are quite broad-ranging if we look at each pillar in turn. So on the people side, if you're looking after your staff well, you've trained them well and kept them motivated, they'll perform well for you. And if you've got a reputation as a good employer, it allows you to recruit from the best. If you've got good relationships with your customers and suppliers, if you look after them rather than simply doing business with them, and if you treat them well and fairly, it makes your relationship stronger. Same with neighbours, other businesses. You have a better standing in the community. On the environment side, a lot of what we need to do involves doing more with less. So using less energy and water and conserving resources. And saving waste saves money when it's treated as a proper project. It's not about cutting corners, it's about finding better ways of doing things. Thinking about whole systems rather than just points within them. Most printers have a great deal of ingenuity and creativity. So harnessing this, using it to take a fresh look at how you're working and what materials and equipment you're using can be a very good trigger for change. And one thing I hear so often is how difficult it is to keep up with whatever's the latest headline issue, whether it's recycling or carbon footprints or plastics or whatever. But if you really understand the ways in which your business interacts with the environment, you'll already be prepared for any issue that's likely to directly affect you. And you'll have taken a decision on whether it's something you need to address. So you won't be caught on the back foot, but instead can be a leader. And onto profit or prosperity, quite apart from the savings made, customers do care about the environmental performance of their suppliers. Any organisation that's got ISO 14001 has to consider the impacts of goods and services they purchase, and that trickles down the supply chain. And larger companies also have to report publicly on their environmental aspects. So the more you can help your customers achieve their aims, rather than just printing for them, the more you'll be valued. And they do differentiate according to environmental management far more often than people often realise. It's just not always visible. Although shortlisted suppliers, yes, will often be chosen on price, environmental considerations will usually have been involved in selecting that shortlist. And finally, investors. Even if it's just your bank and insurers, they care very much about your long-term viability because their money's at risk. So, for example, if you're aware of the risk to your business from climate change and what you're doing about them, whether you've got business resilience plans in place, what kind of investment or insurance risk you are to them. So running a sustainable business does pay you long term on all three fronts.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Claire. Chris, do you want to add anything to that, or are you happy for us to move on?
No, I think that's a very comprehensive cover. I know within Antalis, we dedicate a large proportion of our time towards the way that we can affect sustainability. And it's some of the, like I say, some of the key topics that was mentioned there, absolutely runs true. I think of some of the, international certificates that we've got, such as ISO 14001, which is quite stringent in terms of your environmental management. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is look at that benefit, how we react with our customers, our community, if you want to call it that, and then really pass on that knowledge and that effects of how we can improve. And it's all about those small improvements as well, Graeme, which is key. It's not trying to have one silver bullet approach to things, but do things on a wide approach, but do things in small steps. So yeah, so I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to the second question today. So who should be responsible for the internal process of auditing my print business? Claire, again, I think this is perfect for you as a consultant.
Yes, Graeme. I think we've got two levels here. There's overall responsibility, and that just has to be with senior management. If they're not showing leadership, it just can't work. Staff need to know that it's serious, and whoever it is takes it on day to day. They need to be fully backed up by management and given the resources that they need, whether it's training to be effective, whether it's time to do it, whatever's needed to make it work. But on a day-to-day basis, it needs to rest with someone who's got enough knowledge of the business that they know what questions to ask and where to look. And this can sometimes mean a team that have got different knowledge areas. Ideally, no one should audit their own work because that's really hard to do. You're too close to it. It's a bit like proofreading your own writing. And whoever carries out auditing, as well as technical abilities, they need certain personality traits.
Can you give us some insight into what you consider those to be, please?
Yes, they need to be curious and not afraid of asking questions. You're looking for opportunities to improve, and that may be correcting gaps in ways of working or getting ideas from people who are close to the process. They need to be objective and non-judgmental, because an audit isn't to find fault, but it's to find out why. If things aren't working, to know what you can do to correct it and to put something in place to help it stop it happening again. People are usually trying to do their best, and when things go wrong, it tends to be because they didn't have enough training, they don't have enough knowledge, they don't have the right equipment, or they're working under pressure and don't have enough time, all of which can be changed once you know about it. But one of the main things is feeling comfortable with asking why a lot, even though this can often really annoy people, and never assuming, always asking.
Okay, that's great. Chris, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, once again, I think, Claire's mentioned really the majority of things that you need there. I know that within our business, we've got a specific person within our business who's really passionate in this area and say very inquisitive. He knows really all the international standards and all the processes that we need as a business, as Antalis. And understanding our business is important as well, and where we are today and where we want to get to. And yeah, just having that passion for his role is absolutely, a requirement. So yeah, I would certainly agree on that.
Okay, great. All right, so on to our third question. Can you provide some insight into areas that are most relevant to businesses who print with screen and digital printing? Claire, again, I'll ask you to kick off.
Yes, of course. The main area is actually pretty much the same across all businesses. It's the need to understand in detail how your business interacts with the environment. So just one example of what I mean by detail. Most printers know they use rather a lot of energy because they have to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But very few know how they use it. How much of it is their printing equipment? How much is their air conditioning, computers, lighting, heating, and all of that? And if you don't have that detail, it's really hard to know where to start and how to quantify the savings you'll make. If something can say cut 10% off your air conditioning energy use, how much is that? Is it a tiny amount of your energy? Or would it be a really big win? And would the savings made cover the cost of implementing? But once you start to know that kind of detail, you're in a much better place to look for efficiencies. And then you can see where the quick wins are, you can see where you can make the most difference, but maybe need a longer term program, and where you need to work with your suppliers and learn about consumables and changes you make there. The actual topics common to most printers will be use of energy and resources and creation of waste, with, for some, air emissions quite high up the list. So things to look at doing: stopping waste, reducing environmental impact while also saving costs. And that's energy, resources, water, whatever's in your building, and of course process waste. And I know you've already had a coffee break about color management that has a big insight into that. Then on waste, think about recycling and reuse, but thinking beyond your factory. Try working with customers to design for reuse and design for recycling so you can improve circularity. So, for example, if you're printing on paper, learning about what makes printed paper harder to recycle so you can design that out. And if you're using other substrates, learn more about those and what their impacts are, so you can find options that are less damaging to the environment, or that are recyclable, or, depending on their purpose, are reusable or last longer. And you can think about substituting chemicals and inks for less damaging alternatives, and look for technology changes to help improve energy efficiency and resource efficiency in production. For many, many businesses, most of their overall impact is in their supply chain, which is why your customers will be asking you about your impacts. And it's understanding those impacts and also understanding the eco labels and certifications, which are a tool for you to use, are all an important part about managing your overall environmental impact.
And how do you see the role of offsetting, Claire?
That fits into the overall picture. For example, with carbon, it's theoretically possible for a print business to have absolutely zero carbon emissions from the energy they're using within their factory, although it's not very achievable as yet. But when you look at emissions from what you buy and the waste that you generate, which are often greater, all you can do is to seek to influence. So your aim is to eliminate and reduce what you can, but then compensate what you can't. So to understand your supply chain impacts, you need to work with your supply chain, find out what they're doing to manage their environmental footprint and what's feasible for compensating.
Okay, great. Chris, do you have do you have anything to add on this?
No, I think that the topic of product choice, you know, is one that is prominent. You know, when I think of, and I'll come from a very much a visual communications background into the topic, you know, there is lots of different questions when it comes to sustainability and people's version of that. So, you know, is it carbon? Is it the recyclability of a product, or how much recycled content it's got in that product? Is it the case that, you know, people have said, is it PVC or PVC free product? So I think, you know, there is a lot of confusion, but I think a lot of it comes down into that product selection, is understanding that application, understanding the product that that historically you put into that application. Because, you know, what you tend to try and do at the moment is try to break habits of product selection, habits of just a continual reorder process. You know, you really have to look up and down the chain of what your customer is looking for, and then go into your supplier and saying, right, this is my customer's goal. How can we design that application to be more sustainable? And maybe, you know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago that wasn't possible within some of the product areas, but as we progress, as you know, as our suppliers and manufacturers start to look to a more sustainable agenda, then what we are seeing is more and more products coming onto the market that actually give you more choice in terms of a range that can fit the spec of an application. So does it look good, the aesthetic look? Does it fit the criteria of the application, i.e. does it have to go outside? And obviously, you know, one of the key important factors is, does it hit the pricing bracket? You know, and maybe, as coming back to it, maybe 5 or 10 years ago that didn't happen, but nowadays there are more products that actually allow you to, you know, tick all the boxes when you're trying to pick a sustainable product. So yeah, so say product choice is a key thing for me.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our next question. And Chris, this one is clearly directed at you. Has Antalis's sustainability focus been strengthened by its acquisition by KPP?
Yeah, so KPP already have a fantastic presence when it comes to sustainability. So, you know, what I predict going forward is a more global view in terms of sustainability and joining up and really giving sustainability more focus, and it'd be more core within our business than what it is today. However, you know, saying that, what I would say is Antalis as an international merchanting company already have this eye on our agenda. You know, if I think of some of the really good things that we've done over the last number of years, you know, from starting off, you know, back in 2015, we set a baseline for our carbon emissions because we wanted to reduce our carbon emissions. And 5 years down, we've reduced our carbon emissions by over a third. You know, so once again, these small steps. If I look at our energy sourcing, you know, we've moved to 100% renewable energies, and we've carbon offsetted all the gas on all of our sites. Antalis is in the UK is quite a widespread business, so we've offsetted all of that. I mentioned earlier on some of the international standards that we've got that we're audited towards. So energy being one, so ISO 50001, and the environmental management, which is 14,001. You know, and every time we obviously make some changes and we save some on energy and try to improve our sustainability within our company, then we report that back into obviously the relevant government bodies that we particularly have in the UK. And going forward, there's an improved, streamlined reporting system that we will also report into. Thinking to the future, once again, the circular economy has been mentioned, and that's very prevalent. And I think over the next decade, you know, we're going to see more on that and more thought process that goes into that. So once again, very UK specific, we've got a British Standards 8001, which really starts to talk about that and bring the thoughts together on a circular economy. So yeah, we're really focusing on that. And then some of the really good internal initiatives, you know, dialing back the clock to 2014, we brought in an internal system called Green Star. Green Star was initially really focused on our papers and board selection, and what that did ultimately, in light of no industry standard, was to say, okay, we'll have a look at really what our manufacturing processes are in terms of renewable sources, in terms of the certification, whether it be FSC, etc. And what we did was give a guideline on our products, and I have to say that that's been, you know, internationally recognised and internationally used across many countries, and we display that on our website, and our customers can use that also within their own business to make their own selections. So number one, helping navigate through the Antalis range to pick the best principles, but also, you know, to benchmark against, you know, the wider selection. And we put that star rating, you know, on most of our products, on most of our packaging, and also on the OEM packaging as well. And just following on from that, you know, what we want to do going forward, which is something that will be coming in pretty soon, stroke 2021, is to move the Green Star system into our visual communications range, which is a big thing. You know, I tried to allude to it earlier on. You know, visual communications is crosses many different products: plastics products, polymer-based products, self-adhesive products, composite products. So a really, you know, really wide range. And you know, when it comes to the selection of products and people wanting clarity, once again, there isn't really any industry standards. So what we've tried to do is really be honest and say, across our range, you know, these products we perceive to be good, and that is based on ultimately where the products come from in terms of its source, whether that's renewable, and then really what you can do with it at the end of its life as well. So, you know, is it recyclable? And I know the picture does change from country to country in terms of recycling, but some products are clearly more recyclable than other products. So if they can do that application, it's important that we start to categorize. So once again, you know, we really want to put this out to the market, and to bring really some clarity into this semi-confused market on people wanting to know what are the best product selections. So I think, you know, to answer your question, KPP are a great company. You know, we've got some big plans in terms of sustainability together. But I think also, you know, the things that we've done already and the things that we'll continue to do under the Antalis banner, you know, will be strong and sustainable focused.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Claire, do you have any remarks that you wish to make at the end of that, or shall I move on to the next question?
No, just to say that that's a really good illustration of how learning about what your supply chain are doing and learning to understand what all the certifications and the standards means you know how you can reduce your impact, but also pass that information on to your customers with a solid evidence base. You can clearly demonstrate what difference you're making.
Okay, great, thank you. So our fifth question today is, again, Chris, this one is for you to kick off on, is what initiatives has Antalis undertaken to help with carbon balancing?
Yeah, so carbon balancing obviously has been within our company for a number of years now, but as of the beginning of this year, all our products within the Antalis range and sectors across packaging, across our print business, and also obviously across our Viscom business, which is the latest one, you have the ability to carbon offset all of our products. So obviously, you know, some of the carbon that goes into some of the manufacturing processes, as I say, in polymeric products and even in some of the papers and boards is quite high. So it allows you to really capture that and then offset it against either forestry management or a woodland creation. So, you know, a really strong identity on that front, that you can come to Antalis and really say, you know, there's some choices to be made, and, you know, obviously that carbon offsetting, I can do that across the selection of products, whether that be a paper, if you're ordering a visual communication item as well, or something that you're actually packaging the products in, you can get all of that under one umbrella, which I think is quite strong. Other things that we've done within our creative papers range, we've carbon offsetted all of our creative papers range. So some really strong brands in there. And then, for our customers, we offer a carbon offsetting footprint tool, which allows our customers then to ultimately audit their own business and understand what they can do in terms of sustainability. So, some really strong things. But I think coming back to one of my earlier points as well, as we're really focusing now in terms of our product introduction and our product range, and I think this is a key part of Antalis going forward. Is we're setting ourselves some goals to move some of our historic sales over to more sustainable products. But coming back to how easy that is, today in some of the sectors it's not that easy to do. But we are, through our supply base, looking really across all our suppliers to give us the solutions to some of the more problematic application areas. So I think what you will see over the coming months, years, is a lot of initiatives, a lot of new products that allow you to make this switch from what are traditional products that ultimately, if I take a product like PVC, it's a really good product. It's a certain pricing point. It can do certain applications like go outdoors, but it's clear that PVC at the end of its life ultimately is difficult to dispose of. So, what can you do in a situation like that? Well, if it has to be PVC, I think this is where the carbon offsetting scheme comes in. At least you are offsetting something and adding back something to sustainability. But what we're trying to do also is give you options to say, okay, then instead of that product, it can be product B, which might be something like a product like Zenita or a product like Dispa, where actually for internal use, that product is sufficient. You can recycle it. It's got low carbon. It's got FSC accreditations. So some really positive things. So what we're trying to do really is bring these topics to forums like this and really communicate out, because we know it's not an easy situation in some cases to navigate. So it's all about choices and having dialogue with our customers and our suppliers to make sure that going forward, that the right product selection is in place.
That's great, thank you. Claire, if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to question 6, because time is always against us in this life, but I'm sure you have some comments to make at the end of that one. So question 6, can we get carbon data for all materials? So aluminium composite, polyester fabric for light boxes, self-adhesive vinyl, and the more sort of beyond the more straightforward paper and board stocks. Chris, perhaps you can give some insight on that.
Yeah, well, the great answer is yes, you can. So we have, and I have to say this is very much UK specific at this moment in time, but I know it's something that we're looking across all countries, but obviously there's a slight variation on this, because our methodology reflects the UK government carbon emissions data, offset data. So within the UK government, there is a set of data that is produced, and we take that data because it's consistent. It's updated on an annual basis, and from there we have really a methodology to kind of project ultimately how much carbon goes into the manufacture of certain categories of products. So all of the products that you would mention there are enlisted in that. And then through either World Land Trust or Forest Carbon, then have the ability to then obviously offset those. As I say, it's something that we recently brought in. But what I would say is it's taking a good hold in the market. It gives people's options when it comes to sustainability. But I think it's at the starting point. It will develop. It will become a little bit more detailed the more this debate and dialogue continues. We're speaking to our customers at the moment, and our goal really is to give a full journey of an application. So from manufacturer through to from our customers' printing processes and finishing processes to the end of its life. So that's something that we're working with. That's the next step. So I think we've got a good base at this moment in time, but we need to develop it. We need to finesse it, and we need to move it on so it becomes obviously a little bit more all-encompassing. Brilliant.
Looks like a hell of a lot of progress. That's for sure. Claire, do you have any final remarks on that before we press on?
No, I think Chris has covered everything very thoroughly there.
Okay, great. Well, look, thank you both for these really interesting answers. Now we're going to look at taking some questions. So I'm going to go to the Q&A and let's see what people would like to know. So we've got a few questions here. Okay, so Abisha from South Africa would like to know what would be the first step that a company needs to embark on in order to formulate a sustainability policy, and how often should be this reviewed? I'm going to put this over to you, Claire, first.
The first step is to learn about your company, to learn about how it interacts with the environment. And if you're talking ISO 14001 speak, that is an initial environmental review. So try and learn all about it. And then you need to undertake it possibly every year, because things tend to change over time. If you've undertaken some big changes, if you brought in a whole load of new plant or something, then you would redo it after that, just to make sure you're up to date with understanding what you're doing.
Okay, great. Hopefully, Abisha, that goes some way to helping you on that. We've now got another question from Stefano. Okay, so he thinks that it could be useful to mention a possible way to calculate a return on investment for our customers. I wonder whether, Chris, this might be a good one for you from a kind of a material standpoint. I suppose you've got a carbon calculation tool. Perhaps you'd like to comment.
Yeah, I think what we're ultimately what we're trying to do is have profitable businesses, but also be sustainable. So I think in terms of the return on investment, I mentioned earlier what we're trying to do is to ultimately get to a point where that kind of pricing point, say for instance, isn't a negative pricing point to be sustainable. So you have to put you obviously have to put time, you have to put resource into this. But I think the actual agenda on sustainability is one that is opening the door to more business. It's business development. I think if you've got strong sustainability credentials, then actually that opens the door to a lot of new business, and therefore that investment that you put in at the beginning will certainly get paid back through the companies wanting to work with you because of your sustainable stance.
Okay, that's great, thank you. I've just noticed a question here from Daniel Sunderland. So currently the industry is in survival mode. The customers prefer sustainable products but don't want or can't pay extra. How can we start getting past this problem? Either of you can answer that. I'm going to let you choose who comes in first.
So I think from my point, I'll pick up on the points that I've made before. We are further down the line on sustainability in terms of product selection. So what I would say is in the number of products now where for standard applications, there are a number of sustainable products that actually are more cost effective. And then when you add in the full life cycle of a product in terms of legislative costs, about landfill costs and taxes and potential single-use plastic taxes that might come down in the future, then I think these options are there now. What I would say is it's not there for everything, and I think that's where the the real strong argument comes, because I can understand the question, which is, there's always a pushback that I want to be sustainable, but I can't afford to be sustainable. But, I think this, as I say, the legislative side of things is something that's not going to go away, and the cost of some of these products will increase and increase. So I think at some point there will be a tipping point. But I also think, some of the things around the carbon offsetting also helps to the situation, which is to say, look, it's not perfect. You've got your product that might not be particularly great at this moment in time, but you're doing something in there. So you've got choices, and as we go forward, there will be more choices.
Okay, Claire, would you like to comment on Daniel's question?
Yes, I think it's also important to start at the design end. So if a customer genuinely does want something that's more sustainable, to look at its purpose and look to see if you can design it to be more sustainable. Can you so, for example, if you're doing a banner for a school fete, and it's going to be outside for 2 weeks, you don't want it to be made of paper if it's in Manchester. You might be able to get away with it if you're in Arizona. So you look at the purpose, you design within the purpose to make it as sustainable as possible. But of course, the customer has to buy in to that design, and looking at the different effects you can have and avoiding them. But within your own factory, being more efficient will generally make you more sustainable without adding extra cost.
Okay, great, thank you. We've got another one here from, forgive me for the pronunciation, Tuti, I think, directed to you, Claire. Do you have any tips on how sustainability should be taught to future design professionals? What things should be included in the teaching?
That is a huge question.
It is, and we haven't got a huge amount of time. It's kind of headlines, I suppose, because there's a couple more questions I want to go through.
Start by understanding life cycle. So if you're designing something, where the raw materials come from, what the impacts are in manufacture, how it will be used, what will happen to it at the end of life. And then you've encompassed most of the impacts. And if you're looking fully at sustainability, you want to look at things like where it comes from, what's happening with modern slavery, or the ethical values as well. That is the very short version of the answer.
I appreciate there's a long way you could go with that, but yeah, I think So I remember reading a story about some research on circular design, and it was looking at protection for avocados coming in foam molded plastic trays with cellophane wrappers, and the idea that you could actually create a packaging solution with a kind of an avocado shaped indentation in pressed card, and just completely reinvent the way that the product is actually presented at the point of sale. And I think you're right, all these future applications that use materials that are more straightforward from a circularity and sustainability point of view should be addressed from the beginning of the design process.
And the designer doesn't know what to address unless they understand a bit about the life cycle. Yeah.
I'm now going to move on to, I've got a couple of questions here from John. He's saying, in terms of the recycling of waste, how much work do you think is still to be done to improve the waste management streams? Good question. As 3A, we manufacture 100% recyclable products. However, the end user or even the fabricators will often find it difficult to find someone locally to take the waste away and recycle it. Either of you can come in on this one.
Well, from my perspective, we've been working with a company within the UK, and my understanding of the UK recycling landscape has certainly increased, and what it seems to me is it's very regionalised. and within that region, ultimately in the UK, you've got people who specialise in certain products. So I think to answer John's question is that there is still a long way to go. But once again, I think, you know, more legislation pushes us along the recycling route, the better platforms and the more that actually people will become interconnected. You know, as I say, we use really a waste management company to help provide solutions, and they will then go and try to tie together a package that ultimately will allow you to recycle all of your waste. That, you know, particularly on, you know, there's certain products within recycling streams, such as polypropylene, such as polyesters, that actually, you know, are commonly recycled. So I think connecting those products up first to make sure that we've got a platform for that. You know, paper and board is pretty comprehensive across most of the country in the UK, but really it's just putting pressure on these guys, a downward pressure, but also an upward pressure, you know, from the end users and from legislation to make sure that actually, yeah, you know, we've got a really strong network of recycling companies that can take waste and, you know, add into the circular economy and get it back into different products. Okay,
thank you. Just something funny with Claire, apparently an anonymous attendee is saying that Dispa Outdoor is available. Perfect for outdoors in Manchester.
Ah,
so,
that's always good to know. Technology is coming on leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Thank you, John Monksfield.
I think, yeah, unfortunately, John actually had another question, but time doesn't permit us to go through his next one. So I'm afraid we're going to have to, you know, come to the point that sadly that's nearly all we have time for today. Thank you so much for participating. Apologies for the slightly clunky beginning and getting you to see our presenters today. If you'd like to come and join us in a couple of weeks' time for the next coffee break, we'll be focusing on the role of software automation in speeding up order processing. And that's going to be with Andrew Bales-Collins from InFocus and Malcolm McKenzie from Colour Engine. Registration will be sent out shortly. Also, if you're interested in watching this webinar, please feel free to check in on our FESPA TV YouTube channel, where it will be found, I think, from Thursday. We will be sending a survey out to all of you who've attended, so it would be great if you could give us some feedback. And finally, I'm going to share the slide of our speakers' contact details and my contact details. If you have any discussions that you wish to continue with, then you can give us an email, and we'll be sure to be happy to speak with you. So it's been a pleasure, and you know, thank you all once again. And I'd like to thank Claire and Chris for their insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for attending.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hope you all have a good day.